Okay, so let me record this again and then hopefully I can make it like a little bit shorter so that way maybe people can make it like through it. Because I think the first time I did it, like it was long. Like I had a lot of shit written down and it kind of went further than I thought it would. But anywho, one of America's most prolific serial killers, his name was Carl Eugene Watts, and he was out of Inkster, okay? Like small little 3 by 3, 3 mile by 3 mile city, 25 minutes or so outside of Detroit. Very small little community, but point is, yeah, it put a whole kill out here in these streets, right? So, okay, boom, backstory. Carl, who also, his nickname was Coral. And I think in the last video I had to say it like, if you watch The Walking Dead, you understand why that made me giggle. But Coral was born in Killeen, Texas, right? Killeen, Kill, kill. Not sure if this is like foreshadowing or what. But he was born in Killeen, Texas. November 7th, 1953. His birthday's coming up. So he's born in Killeen, Texas. I'm not really sure if his parents were married or not, but they were together. They split up when he was like 2. So he was with his mother. She was a kindergarten art teacher. So he stayed with his mom and they lived in Texas until he was about 9. And that is when they moved to Inkster. So they moved to Inkster in 1962. So they move out there. He's 9 years old. She meets another dude. She dates him for a while. They get married. I think he was a mechanic. They had a couple more kids, 2 more girls. So he has a couple sisters out there. Not sure what their names are, though, because I didn't really look them up. His mom and dad, I looked up their names, but I don't remember what they were, and I'm not going to put them out there anyhow. So anyway, Carl, he's in Inkster. Mom's remarried, couple more siblings. He's going to school. He contracts meningitis when he's about 12. So he's out of school for a while because meningitis is really something serious, right? So he's out of school for a while. And what happens is he's out for so long that he has to like repeat the 8th grade. So he has to repeat the 8th grade. And of course, junior high students are trash. They suck. They make fun of everybody. So he's teased because he can't keep up. And they're not really sure if it's a result of the meningitis or not, but yeah, he can't keep up. So he has to redo the grade over again. Well, no, this was during when he had to redo the grade over again that they're like making fun of him. Anyway, this also tells you like to be cautious of the people that you make fun of because you never know what's really going on in their fucking mind and what kind of list they could be adding you to. Could be a Christmas card list, could be a kill list. Just saying. Think about that before you treat people badly. So by now, Carl is like 12, 13. This is also around the time when they say he first started having like fantasies of murdering women, young women. He also started around this time like kind of stalking young girls, which was like really fucking weird. But it wasn't until he was 15. I say it wasn't until like that was so long ago, like he was so much older. But when he was like 15, he was tried and convicted of raping a 25 or 26-year-old woman. He was 15. This was June of 1969. He raped a woman. He goes to jail. They're like, fuck, he must be crazy. He's too young to be out here just like snatching it from women. Her last name was Gabe. I can't think of her first name, but Miss Gabe wasn't giving it up. Okay, so what they did was they sent him to a mental hospital in Detroit because mental hospitals were still open at that time. This was before our wonderful Republican governor Engler decided to like close all of them. So boom, he goes to the mental hospital. He stays there until November, only until November, and then they let him the fuck out. Right. But while he's there, his IQ was tested. He had an IQ of 68 to 75, which is deemed to be low. The average IQ is 85 to 115 for most people. 70% of the population, 85 to 115. He was at a whopping 68 to 75. And I give that range because some articles said 75, but then I saw a couple that said 68. So whatever. Point is, 68, 75. He's also deemed to be slightly mentally retarded, which, I mean, being like mentally challenged does not mean that you walk killing people, but you know, whatever. I don't see what that really had anything to do with, but okay. He's also diagnosed with being like severely antisocial psychosis or some shit like that. But it basically meant like he had like no conscience or no moral compass. Like he doesn't feel bad. He does like ill shit and just doesn't give a fuck. Yeah, that's Carl. That's Coral. So, okay, boom. He gets out. There's no telling really what he's done from there up until he turns 20. But okay, he gets out. He did graduate high school, Inkster High. He graduates high school, and then he winds up going to Lane University in Tennessee. But down there, weird shit starts happening. Bitches come up miss. Not bitches, I'm sorry. I mean, okay. Women come up missing. I'll be talking like I'm talking about my friends who are still alive and well. Women come up missing. But also while he's down there, what happens is he gets hurt because he's down there on a college scholarship, a football scholarship. He gets hurt. He can't play anymore. So guess what they do? That he's disposable. So they send him back to Michigan. So he comes back to Michigan. He gets a job as a mechanic. He works there for a few years, and then he applies to Western Michigan University. He goes to Western Michigan University. While he's there, it is believed this is when he killed. Oh my gosh, that's gonna bother me. Oh gosh, I know her name. Steele, Gail Steele. Shoot. Hold on one second. I'm sorry. Her name was Gloria Steele. So this is when they believed that he killed Gloria Steele, but he also tried to assault another young lady. But she got away. But she was able to identify him as well. So he was arrested for that assault, and he wound up going to jail for a year behind that. However, they weren't able to connect him to Gloria right then, so they kind of like suspected it was him, but they weren't really sure, so weren't really sure they could do about it. So he goes to jail for the year for assaulting the one chick. He gets out. After that, he stays in Michigan for a little bit, but then he wound up like going across to Canada and assaulting a young lady over there. Around this time, it's probably, okay, so the assault in Western Michigan, that was 1975. So he went to jail for a year. So let's say he got out in like 76, no later than 77. So then he goes back to Michigan. I mean, he goes back to Inkster. He's been over there cutting up because, I mean, he's got bodies racked up in Ann Arbor, St. Clair Shore, no, Grosse Pointe Shores. Ann Arbor, Grosse Pointe Shores, Inkster, like the local area, Wayne County, you know. So the point is, he's just been kind of jumping around. But this is another thing. It was hard to catch on to like what he had done, what he had been doing, because he wasn't sexually assaulting the ladies or leaving any type of DNA evidence behind. Even with the lady he assaulted in Canada, he didn't leave any real evidence behind, but she didn't die, so she was able to give a description. And they were like, yeah, this guy sounds fucking familiar. Okay, like we've dealt with this dude before. Like, and the thing was, he was already kind of like on the radar. So they were already kind of like, had like an ear open, you know, when it came to him, you know, an eye open, ear open, whatever. So what happens? Okay, so he goes to Canada, hurts this chick. Boom, they're like, yeah, we're tired of this shit. So the FBI starts a task force in 1980, and they're like, yeah, we're going to start keeping an eye on him because everywhere he goes, some weird shit happens. While he's living in Wayne County in Michigan, like bodies and women are coming up missing. When he goes to Tennessee, women and bodies are coming up missing. When he goes to Western Michigan, Kalamazoo, shit, people are coming up missing. So they're like, oh, he goes over to Canada. We got a description of you being over there. Weird shit's going on. So they're like, yeah, they're kind of over his shit. So the FBI sets up this task force to kind of keep an eye on him, but they can't watch him every day, all day, but they do watch him as much as they can. They even go as far as putting a homing device on his car to kind of keep track of where he's going. So Coral decides to move to Texas. Coral moves to Texas, and the task force was set up in 1980. So come 1982, there's no telling again like what he's done while he's been down there. Again, you know, DNA wasn't really as popular as it is now, you know, and then plus he wasn't leaving a lot of evidence because he wasn't having sex. They didn't feel like sex was a motivation for his murders. I guess he just wanted to kill people. Just fucking weirdo. He goes to Texas. He's down there. He's killing people down there. You know what I'm saying? Like, he just, everywhere he go, he got to kill somebody. They're like, bodies are like souvenirs to him. It's weird. But these two chicks, they live in an apartment together. And so one's name is Lori. Another one's name is Melinda. So Melinda's in the apartment. Lori's outside. He catches Lori first. He strangles Lori. She goes unconscious. He leaves her outside, goes into the apartment to go after Melinda. He chokes Melinda. Melinda fakes like she's out of it, but she's really not, right? But she fakes like she is. So he ties her up, but he doesn't tie her up really tight. I guess he felt like it. She's kind of unconscious. He wasn't worried too much about her. Goes and drags Lori into the apartment. Drags her into the apartment. Once he gets her in there, he starts filling up the bathtub full of water. Fills the bathtub up full of water because he's planning on drowning both of them. But what he doesn't know is while he's in the bathroom, like filling this fucking tub up, Melinda comes too. And she's like, bullshit, not today. So she gets her hands free and she hauls ass, right? She like went out a window or some shit like that. Not quite sure what room she was in and she had to go out a window, but whatever. Who gives a fuck long as she got out of there. So she takes off. She gets out of there. He realizes shit, the jig is up. So then he takes off too. She runs to get help. He takes off. He gets apprehended not too far from the apartment, you know, not too far from the apartment. Point is, it's all in the same fucking day. So he gets caught. He's brought in. So now they're like, you know what? We didn't hear stories. Like, you know, this shit fits your MO. You've been killing girls, haven't you? Because he usually kills between the ages of 14 to 44. Weird. Children. He's like, you're killing kids. 14 years old? Like, weirdo. One, her name was Nadine. Like, they suspect he killed her. She was in Inkster, last seen walking up John Daly, headed towards Michigan Avenue. But they never found her body, so they couldn't confirm if it was him or not. But they really think it was. But anyway, so he's in Texas. He gets caught. Trying to think what happened. Oh, okay, boom. So they're like, yeah, we think that you've done some shit already, but he won't really, you know, he's like, I don't know. I'm not just going to tell you just because. So they're like, guess what? We're going to give you a deal. So we're going to offer you immunity for any murder that you tell us about. And we're just going to charge you for like burglary and I think it was like burglary and like intent to commit murder or some shit like that. Hold on, I'm going to tell you, confess to burglary with intent to murder. Yes. Okay. So that's what they wanted to charge him with, but we'll give you immunity for all the murders that you tell us about. Share, my guy, share with us. So he tells him about at least 12 to 18 murders that he's committed, all the details. They give him this fucking deal, Texas prosecutors, because they feel like we don't really have the evidence to like convict him anyway. So he would like get off. At least if we give him the 60 years, he's not going anywhere. But 60 years and then immunity for all these murders. Well, guess what? The state of Michigan was also looking at him. But the state of Michigan was like, nah, we not going to be we don't want no parts of that fucking deal. We don't give immunity for murder. Like, what kind of crazy sick shit is that? No, we're not going to do that. So they say no, we're not going to go in on that deal. So really his cases in Michigan and what they have for him is just kind of like left hanging in the wind. So he gives his confessions. He's convicted. He gets his 60 years or whatever, his plea bargain. He gets his 60 years. But what happened was, what he didn't know and what the prosecutors didn't tell him was that that tub that he was filling up with water was considered a deadly weapon. And that like played a part. Like, since he didn't know that, they felt like, oh, well, you can't add that in with the deal. Like, he didn't really confess to like preparing this deadly weapon because he didn't know that's what it was. Gives a fuck. So now we have to reclassify him from a violent offender to a non-violent offender. Yes. And with non-violent offenders in Texas at the time, for every 1 day that you are good, you get 3 days shaved off. So if you're good for Monday, we're going to shave off Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Okay. Yes. There you go. So his time went from like 60 years to like 20 years instead. With that law, it changed his release date from 60 years out to actually like 20 years. Like, this was 1982 when he was actually caught breaking into Melinda's apartment. And he was due to be released May 9th, 2006. Like, that's not 60 years. I know it's not, because I was born right before that. I remember how old I was in 2006. So it's like, yeah, that's not 60 years. But that's what his his release date became once he was reclassified as a non-violent offender. I was like, get the fuck out of here. Yep, that's what happened there. So kill all these women and you do 24 years. And then we're going to let you out, right? Yay, you. However, up in Michigan, remember, those cases are still open because we didn't have no parts of that deal that, Texas prosecutors gave him. So Mike Cox, who was the attorney general at the time, is like, fuck that. No. So come 2004, he's like, I'm going to start looking for people. I'm trying to put some shit together. This guy cannot get out in 2006. So he started looking for witnesses and stuff like that, any crimes that Coral may have committed while he was in Michigan. And luckily, this dude from Westland comes forward and he's like, yeah, I saw him kill somebody. And Mike Cox is like, for real, for real? And he's like, for real, for real. He killed this lady named Helen. It was 1979, but yeah, definitely was him. I remember him. And I feel like you probably will remember some shit like that. Like, that had to be something to, like, stick in your mind. So Mike is like, cool. Bring him the fuck on up here. I want to try him. Like, extradite him. Bring him to Michigan. I'm going to try him. So Mike Cox brings him up here. He tries him for Helen's murder from 1979. And he's convicted. Yeah, life sentence. Also, while we got him up here, he also was tried and convicted because they thought he had something to do with Miss Steele's death, the student from Western Michigan University. But they didn't have enough evidence at the time. But by then it was like, yeah, we feel like we got this shit. So they tried him for her murder too. He was also convicted, got another fucking life sentence. So while Texas was just going to let him just roam the streets and go kill, a few more fucking people, who knows how many more people, Michigan was like, no, not on our watch. Michigan came through. No, we're not going to play that game. So he wound up getting 2 life sentences here in Michigan. He went to Iona where he was serving his time. However, he did have prostate cancer. And then he wound up dying in 2007 from prostate cancer at a hospital like in Jackson, Michigan somewhere. So he really didn't serve much more time past the 2006 anyway. But you know what? Who gives a fuck? At least he didn't have another free day. I hate that he even got treatment. His time before he wound up going to prison, like in the 70s, he did get married. He did wind up having a daughter. I did find her name online, but I won't put it out there because who the fuck would, want the world to know? Well, I mean, fuck, you can look it up yourself too, though. But I'm not going to be the one to put it out there. Like, who would want to know? Who would want the world to know if their dad was a serial killer? Like, I mean, I'll take my dad over that dad any day, I guess. But anywho, so he is one of the most prolific serial killers in American history. Carl Eugene Watts supposedly killed upwards of 80 to 100 women. 80 to 100 women. That's a lot of women. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of anger built up in. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's crazy. But, yep, that's his story. And, yeah, he's fresh out of Inkster, y'all. There's another one I'm going to look up too. I think his name was Rodney Payne. My mom told me about him. She claims she ain't no Coral, but I'm like, everybody from Inkster knows everybody. So you probably did. You're just embarrassed. It's okay. But maybe she's not because she also told me about Rodney. I'm going to look him up too. See what I can find about him. Another like serial killer out of Inkster. Like, what? Oh my God. This city is too small to be breeding multiple fucking killers. But, whatever. Anywho, so that's Carl Eugene Watts. He's dead now. Rotten hell, homie. Yes, but I do feel bad for like all of the people who lost loved ones, to him that they didn't, that didn't receive justice. Like in Texas, he was convicted for like burglary, and then in Michigan it was only for like 2 murders. So it's like he was like, they believe he killed upwards of 80 to 100 people. 80 to 100. So he only went to prison for killing 2. Oh, and this was another thing. What really got him up here as well was his confessions that he gave in Texas. Like he didn't want that to be a part of his trial up here in Michigan, but judge up here was like, bitch, we want to hear all of that. Bring it up here. So the confessions that he gave in Texas, as a part of his plea deal, in 82 were actually used against him in 2004, 2005 to ensure those life sentences here in Michigan. So yay, at least that happened, But yeah, so that's Carl Eugene Watts. Right out of Inkster, 80 to 100 women out of his rabid mind. Maybe we'll throw him back to Texas. We'll let Texas take that loss. Maybe we don't want no parts of him. Not in Michigan. All right.